Hi guys, Rob from Rob's Model Cars and welcome back to the channel. Now I've been asked by a few of you subscribers about how to mount a model to a leather base. Now this is a reasonably easy thing to do and I'm going to show you, this is the recently completed Novitec 430 Scuderia 16M that I just finished. And I'm going to mount this to a leather base. Now these leather bases, you can buy them from BBR Model Store. There's a few generic ones on eBay, and they're just basically a piece of wood and they're wrapped in this synthetic leather. Some of them already have the black felt base, some of them come with this piece and you can stick it on after you screw the model on. But I'm going to show you how to set out where all the holes go and how to actually mount one of your custom models to one of these leather bases. Now let's go through what you're going to need. So of course you're going to need some screws. These ones measure 30 millimeters or about 1.25 inches I think in Imperial, and they're just a coarse threaded wood screw. Now I use these ones, these are almost black, the colour's called Florentine Bronze. You can get these from your local hardware store. So this is what I use to mount the models to the bases. Of course you're going to need a ruler to set out your hole distances, just a black marker, a Phillips head screwdriver to actually screw the screws on. I don't use a power driver for that, I do that manually. You're going to need either an electric drill or a cordless drill. I've got in here a 1/8 size drill bit. You basically want the drill bit to be the same size as the shank of the screw, not including the thread size, because I want the screw not to be loose through the base. I want to be able to screw that through the base, but we'll get to that later. You're also going to need a spade bit. This is to countersink the holes on the other side. If you don't countersink the holes, obviously the head of the screw won't go all the way in and the base won't sit flat. So we've got a 10 mil, which is more than enough for the head of the screw to be countersunk into the bottom of the base. And I've also got my little handy Tamiya battery powered electric drill. This is for drilling some holes into the bottom of the model. We'll get into that also. Alright, so let's make a start. What you want to do first is you want to determine where the model is going to sit on your base. So if you just want it to sit in the middle, that's fine. You can work out the position. Make sure you've got equal distance either side, but we'll get into that as well. Now, I've actually got some custom-made badges from a trophy manufacturer here. They made these and printed these badges up for me for all my Ferrari models. And you might have seen from my other videos that I stick those on the front of the base plate like such. So when I want to work out where the model is going to sit, I want to work out basically where this nameplate is going to sit, which is about there. And then I roughly want equal space either side, which is about a finger space for this particular one. So that's how I determine where the model is going to go. Obviously the camera's above, so it doesn't look like there's much gap there, but there is. So that's basically, I know where the front of the model is going to sit. So with that in mind, I'm going to use I'll use a coloured tape so you can see. I'm just going to use a piece of masking tape, or PVC tape in this case, because it's green so you can see it. And I'm basically just going to stick that across the front of the base so that I know where the front of the model is going to stop. Now that's pretty important because I want all my holes to line up. So that is basically where the model is going to sit, the front of it. Okay, so the front of the bumper is going to be the back side of this tape here. So that's all we need to do for the moment for the base. Next thing we need to do is work out how we're going to put the holes in the model. Now to do that, we've got two options. As this is a Hot Wheels Elite model, there are already some holes where the model was screwed to its plastic base when it was new. So there's two on the front here, and there's two on the side here. There was one in the rear, but I filled that up because I wanted to carbon fiber it. So you can either use these factory holes. Sometimes you can use the screws that came with the model. They'll actually be long enough. These ones won't. I don't actually have any of the longer ones here. I've probably thrown them out. But you can find the right size screw from your hardware store and actually use those same screw holes. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to drill your own holes in here, just for the sake that when this is mounted to a base, I don't want to see those screw holes because they're so close to the edge of the model. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill two holes in the center. I'm going to drill a hole in the front in the center and a hole towards the back in the center. That way when the model is screwed to the base, the screws are right in the middle, and the model sits pretty low anyway, so it's going to be a lot harder to see the screw holes. So again, I'm using a piece of foam. Just be careful. This is a convertible. I don't want to break the windscreen. I'll just sit my roll of tape there. And you want to determine where you're going to drill the holes. So you don't want to drill it right in the middle because it's probably, your hole's going to come up into the interior pan. Usually I'll just drill it behind the front axle because that's the safest place to do it. You're not going to interfere with the steering rack of the model. And we're just going to, you can measure a center. I'm pretty good with my distances. So I'm basically just going to drill a hole with my little Tamiya drill because I'm not putting too much force onto the model. And I've just drilled a hole, a little pilot hole here, right in the center. I know that that's basically in line with where my finger is, so it's not going to come through the interior pan, and it's not going to go through the front cargo area as well. Kind of a no man's land there. And the next one I do at the back, I'm going to do that further back than the interior pan, but in front of the rear axle, because I know there's nothing under the engine there. And I'm just going to basically drill a hole. So there's already a little marking here. I'm going to drill it just in front of that. There we go. So that's my rear hole there. I've just done it in front of that little casting mark, and I know when I had this model apart that there's actually a void in there because the engine is just multiple pieces that are fitted up top. So that's what I use just to, because this is a little battery powered drill, you don't have to put much pressure on there. And these are going to be my two screw holes, although I do need that hole to be bigger for this screw. So then I will use my cordless drill. This has a 1/8 of an inch drill bit, and it's going to be a lot easier to drill those holes out larger because I've already drilled a smaller pilot hole. So just be careful, you don't need much pressure. That drill bit could be a bit sharper. Use a sharp drill bit. And that's the front hole done, the rear hole done, and then I'll just drill one in the front here as well. Just make sure you hold the model well and you hold it in a place where you're not going to put pressure on the window, or I usually just put my finger on the hood here, both doors, and that way I can hold the car quite tight. So these are the two holes. So these will be just enough that when I tighten these with a screwdriver, they'll actually thread through the plastic floor and hold the model in place. That's why I drill a hole that is smaller than the screw, so that the screw will actually tap itself through the plastic floor and you don't really need a screw longer than 30 millimeters by the time it goes through the thickness of the base, the gap that the floor is off the base and then into the floor. You only need this screw to go into the floor 5 mil or so. That's about it. So now that we've got the holes drilled in the floor, we can measure the hole location. Sorry, not totally prepared here. So just grab a piece of paper, and then I'm just going to do basically a rough drawing of the car. Let's put F on there for front, and then we're going to put a center line of the first hole and a center line of the second hole. Then we're going to measure with the ruler. We're going to measure from the front bumper bar to the first hole, which I've got 77 millimeters there. So I'm going to write on my bit of paper 77. So that's going to be the distance from the front of the model to the center line of the first hole. Then we're going to measure from the center of that first hole to the center of the back hole. And I have 91, a little bit more, 91 millimeters. So I'll just jot that measurement down as well. So let's say 91.5. And that is the distance between the center of the front hole and the back hole. So now we know where those locations are for the two holes. So we don't need the model again right now. So we'll put that to the side and we'll get the base out. So as we did earlier, we've got a line here for the front of the model. Going to get some masking tape, just basically put that down the center of my leather base, and then we're going to just transfer those measurements to the base. So we're going to go 77 millimeters, that's the center of the front hole, and then we're going to go 91.5, that's the center of the second hole. Now we want the model to sit on the base with the same distance either side, so this is just over 15 centimeters, so we're going to mark the center that way, and we're going to mark the center that way. So that's the easy way. As I say, if you just want to use the factory holes that are in the model, just measure that the same way. Just come from the front of the car, measure from the front to the center line of the holes, and then if there's a hole either side, measure back that way as well, hole to hole, and then just equal it both sides. So we're trying to do it both ways here, and that's basically it. So that gives us the two mounting holes for the model. Next thing we want to do is drill the holes through the base. Now I'm just going to use a scrap piece of board here because I don't want to drill a hole through my work mat. And then we're just basically going to drill all the way through this leather base. It's timber on the inside. Actually, they make these out of MDF or medium density fiberboard. And that's the holes drilled through. Now I've drilled those all the way through, you can see them coming through here. And next step we want to countersink this back hole so the screw head will go into the base. That's where this spade bit, they call it, comes in handy. But we don't want to go all the way through with this spade bit. We only want to go in 5 or 6 mil, quarter of an inch. So what I'm going to do as a guide, I'm just going to put a piece of masking tape around the spade bit. So when I drill in, I stop where the tape is. So then I know I've only gone down 5 or 6 mil. Now this is probably going to make a bit of mess. So that's your spade bit in, and we're just going to countersink that. and that's it. So that is the countersink hole. I've gone down about 5 mil, so that screw tip will go all the way, the screw head I should say, will go all the way through. And it's easier when you don't have the black felt on the bottom already, but I've got some little black caps that I got from a cabinet supplier, and I'll just, once the model's screwed in there, I'll stick one of these little black caps over the screw hole, and it's on the bottom side anyway, so you don't see it. So that's it for the holes. We don't need that piece of masking tape anymore, so we'll get rid of that. And then what I'll do is just screw these screws through just with my Phillips head screwdriver bit. Now I'm not going to screw them all the way in, but I do want them to stick out the other side enough that they'll reach the model, and the model will sit off the base a little bit as well. So in this case they are all the way in. They're about 1 millimetre under, and they're sticking out about 10 mil, which is what I want. Just get rid of this piece of board. Okay, so now is the tricky bit. You've got to be careful. We want to basically line up those screw holes that you can see with the screws sticking through the base. Now if you've measured it up correctly, they're sitting in, the screws are just poking through the floor there now on the model. So what I'll do, I'll just try and balance the base. You can get a second person to help you if you need that. And then I'll just start with the back first, and I'll just give it a couple of turns so the screw is actually into the model, and then I'll do that with the front as well. Now you can see the model is held on by the screws, both front and back, but I don't want to let go of the model yet, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to unscrew this back screw and let the model come back down to the base until it touches, and then I'll tighten the screw back up. So, and I don't want the model to move. I want the model to be still sitting on the peak of the screw. So that's it. The model is now, the tyres are touching the base. Now put a little bit of pressure on the model against the base so it doesn't go up again, and I'm going to screw the screw back in. Now you can see, there we go, that the tyres are now touching, and I'm going to do this on the front as well. So I'm going to undo this screw, making sure that the model still sits over the top of the screw and doesn't twist sideways. You can see the model's coming back down. Now the model can sit on the base. A little bit of pressure on the model to hold it against the base, and now I'm doing the screw back up. I don't want to do it up too much because I don't want the I don't want to put too much pressure or rip the screw through the plastic floor. I just want the model to be secure on the base, and that's basically it. So now I've done the front, the back's lifted off a little bit, so I'm going to do the same with the back again. I'm going to loosen that screw. I can actually hold it at the back there as well. Loosen that back screw off again until the model sits down on the base, and then I'm going to tighten that screw again. You'll see where the floor of the model starts to move down, and that's basically it. So you can see there the tyres are just touching the base. I don't want to squish the tyres flat, and you can see that it's really hard to see the screws because they're in the centre. Now there's nothing wrong with putting the screws on the side, using the factory holes. If you're a bit too nervous to make your own holes in the bottom of the model, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Go for it. So that's basically it. We don't need that piece of tape on there now, so I can remove that piece of tape. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got these little black caps, so I can actually flip the model over and I can put these black caps over the holes. That one's going to require a little bit of black marker. Not that you're going to see it anyway, but look, that's a pretty easy fix. And that is how you screw a model onto a leather base. Now I've only got one more thing to do, and that is my custom nameplate for the front. I just use a little bit of Bob Smith Industries Maxi Cure, the pink bottle. I never want it to come off, and basically I'm just going to, I won't do it over the model, I'm just going to put some glue on it like that, and then, as I say, it's probably safer for you to measure it, to get it equal either side. I've been a builder for 30 years, so I've got a pretty good eye for measurements, so I'm happy with that, and I'll just stick that down. So that's how I present my custom models for the ones I sell and the ones I keep for my own collection. But that is a video on how to mount your custom models or just your regular models onto a leatherette base. So that's it for today's tutorial. A nice quick one, but something you guys might find very handy to do. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Don't forget to smash that like button. Feel free to share the video also. And stay tuned, plenty more model reviews on the way. We've got some great ones that should be here next week or the week after. And I've got a few more how-to tutorials for you guys as well to keep you guys building supercar models just like me. So until next time, thanks for your support on the channel, and thanks for watching Rob's Model Cars.